Alright, so our current problem is that the ground behaves like ice. We slide around, it takes a long time to stop. And the way we're going to try and fix it, since we've taken steps to use the built-in Unity physics system, I want to try and use the built-in Unity physics materials to change the way my player's friction works so that I slow down faster, right? So if I were to go to my assets directory in the project window and right click and choose create folder, I'm going to make another folder for a new category of assets. This one will be physics materials. And I'll open that up and I will right click and I'll choose create. And we are going to find the category physics material 2D. So create physics material 2D. And we're going to name this thing, we'll name it player, because this will just be the physics material for the player. Now, physics materials basically do two things. They define a friction and they define a bounciness. So if we create a bounciness of 1, the player kind of just bounces forever without ever slowing down. Um, I guess if I want to test this out, I can apply it to the player real quick. So select your player and then find the box collider 2D that we're using for the player's collision and drag the player physics material onto it. And then now if you were to run the game, the player should just kind of bounce indefinitely, like not really like anything in this world because everything sort of would normally slow down. So if we were to go back to that physics material and make it any number less than 1, the bounce will sort of deteriorate and eventually come to a rest, right? But we're not here to, our problem wasn't that the player wasn't bouncing right. So we actually don't want our player to bounce. So let's leave the bounciness at 0. Friction was the issue, right? So point 4 is like the default friction. Let's see kind of if we crank this up to 1, let's kind of see if we start to get the behavior we were looking for. It's slowing down sooner, but I want the player to um, stop even sooner than this, stop more responsively. Now, a thing to note about physics materials is they don't, sadly, you can't really change them in while the game is running. It just doesn't work that way. It's one of the few things that we can't tweak while the game is running. So you have to actually stop the game, then make your change, and then try it again. And oh, check this out. My friction is so great that when I add force, I'm actually rolling around, which is actually kind of a fun mechanic, but it's not going to be what I'm looking for. So this is just a hint that I need to adjust my player character's rigid body 2D. We want to find the constraints section of the player character's rigid body 2D component, and we want to lock its rotation on the Z axis. This will stop it from rolling around, but maybe you want to make a game where that is how you move, because that's kind of fun. Anyhow, so now I move and I stop kind of okay. Maybe I even want to stop sooner than this, I'm not sure, but we'll just say this is good for now until I have like a game I can test, like a more reasonable test level to actually try things out. I'd say it still feels not quite responsive enough, so we'll just keep that in mind as we keep going. So one of the neat things that we can do since we're trying to use physics materials is we can create physics materials for different types of floors too. So I could make um, like a mud, a slow physics material that the player can't move as quickly through because the friction on it is higher. Or I could make a slippery physics material that would actually be more like ice, so the player's sliding around. So if we wanted to test that out, I could go ahead and make sure I'm in my physics material folder here, and right click, create physics material 2D, and I can make, I'll make the slow physics material, and I will also make the slippery physics material. And we can just make sure all of these will work. So um, slippery will go ahead and give a friction of like really low, like 0.1. And slow, we want to have a higher friction. So like, I don't know, we'll just pick like 0.8 for now and kind of see what happens. And so I'll leave my green floor, that'll be the default floor. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the floor and then just move it on the X axis here. And I'll change the color of the second one. So this one will be my slippery. We'll make kind of like light blue like ice. And let's just, since we don't have a jump yet in this game, let's go ahead and make sure it's very close, if not overlapping with the other ground. I'll rename this one slippery floor. And let's go ahead and make sure we put the slippery physics material on its box collider. And then we will duplicate our slippery floor and move it over on the X. Control D is duplicate, by the way. It's just, I guess, an even faster way of doing Control C, Control V for copy and paste. I'm going to rename this one slow floor, and I'm going to change the color to like an orangish yellow. And we will put our slow physics material on this one. And we'll just run the game and kind of see what happens. So if we run the game, I have the behavior I'm used to on the green normal floor. If I start moving and then I stop on the blue slippery floor, you can see it takes a lot longer to slow down. And then on the yellow orangish slow floor, it takes longer to get going and you stop a lot sooner. Alright, so that's something. None of them feel great to me yet, but it's worth pointing out that this is a feature we can use. And as we move forward in our videos, we'll try and fine-tune things even further. But I think at this point the next step we need to do is add jump, and then once we have jump in, that'll probably expose some more issues, and then we can keep fine-tuning.